Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast, Season 2, Episode 10. I'm JT, joined with Lounis and Frank. Jake, again, running from the grind. I beat him in our home league. I think he's scared. All his Giants players are getting injured.
Crazy what happens when you fall below 500.
Yeah, Jake's running from the grind. We got a good episode for you guys today. So I think we'll just kick it off with, easily the biggest news. From a dynasty perspective, not as much, I guess, but John Gruden had some emails leaked. Definitely not good in nature.
Yeah.
He just had to resign. Like he is no longer the head coach of the Raiders. I forget who's replacing him. It was one of the
special
assistant
teams
coaches.
coach.
Yeah,
special teams coach.
I mean, to me, I don't really think sure it'll be a distraction for the rest of the season, I guess, but I don't think it'll actually be that big of a deal. Like the team's still going to be the team.
I think the week you had to be mostly worried about it being a distraction was last week against Chicago, and I mean they already kind of had their bad performance. I think now they just have the new coaching staff. It's the same offense. The only real difference is going to be it's the same offensive scheme. It's just now instead of Gruden calling the plays, it's going to be the offensive coordinator calling the plays. I don't have any reason to anticipate it being much different, but that's really the only thing that's changed.
Frank?
Man, it's weird to think. If I own Raiders players, I have a lot of shares of Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller. Like I'm not necessarily panicking necessarily, but it's definitely annoying if that Gruden is no longer going to be there because I mean he's hired to be an offensive coach, right? So I'm going to assume that it has a little bit of impact on the offense because the Raiders offense has been one of the better groups in the league under Gruden. So I don't think that this is going to be something that has zero impact, but at the same time, it's just there's really no way to tell until we get some games under our belt with the intern coaches.
I mean, I will say from a future standpoint, I think the rest of the season the team's going to still be the team. Like they're a solid offense. They've got some playmakers on defense like Crosby and Morwig and whatnot. But where I think this does get interesting is kind of what happens this offseason because I got to imagine it's not going to be this coaching staff that remains. And then whoever they bring in is not going to have any ties to Derek Carr. Like they have no incentive to keep Derek Carr. So what does that mean for the future of the Raiders team? I don't know. But, that's a offseason thing. But it's definitely something you want to consider if you have Derek Carr on your team right now. I'd probably try and chop him around if I could. Especially because I know these past 2 weeks haven't been great, but he started off the season averaging 400 yards over the first 3 weeks of the season. So he's got some value at least.
Well, also just in classic Raiders fashion, they always start off the season strong and find some way to end the season poorly, whether it's with or without Gruden.
That's true.
Last week they looked bad against Chicago.
Well, they ended up with 3 points, right? 3.
I know it was single digits.
It was rough. I mean,
it was bad.
You could tell that the Raiders just weren't playing with energy. Like you can almost not that you obviously hindsight's 2020 and looking back, it's like you can definitely sense that there was kind of a rift, it seems like, throughout the team.
Yeah. Now they have their new coach to rally around. I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening. Moving on, though, got some injury news. I guess we'll start off with the killer one that was not as bad as it looked.
Yeah.
Saquon, originally, I thought it was your boy Kadarius Toney that made him roll his ankle. They actually stepped on a Cowboys player when he was running, went over his ankle. People kind of described it as a basketball injury, what it looks like when you're rebounding a ball or something. I kind of agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
The images afterwards, I don't know if that's what you're doing right now, Frank.
Yeah, I'm his ankle. His ankle is massive. Yeah. Look at that thing.
Giant.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's like you put a tennis ball on his foot.
Yeah. Apparently not that bad though. A couple weeks, I guess.
The good news was that it was a low ankle sprain and not a high ankle sprain. So rather than an injury that might take 4, maybe 5 weeks to come back, it's kind of closer to 2 to 3. So he'll be back in I'd just be safe and say 3 weeks.
One could say he's hurdling the low ankle sprain.
Yes, I could say it.
All right, I'll
He's
leave.
hurtling blow
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
point.
I'm out. If you could just give yourself the clown. I I just think same kind of thing as like a CMC. It's just you're gonna be without him a few weeks. It's annoying, but could have been worse. So
What
you're
stinks is
happy.
that I feel like you finally got Saquon was finally starting to get back in the groove. When he came
Mhm.
back, I thought that he was trying to do way too much, just trying to bounce runs to the outside. Yeah, I mean, Saquon's a home run hitting type of running back, but it really did feel like he was trying to force it. The past couple of games, you finally got, okay, he's being a little bit more consistent, kind of just taking what the defense is giving him more so. And now he's back injured, which like it's just really frustrating as a Saquon owner
Yeah, and
or roster.
we'll touch on what's happening with the Giants and whatnot in our waiver wire segment. But let's move on to Russell Wilson. Feels like forever ago.
This
'cause
one
it was-
stings, man. This one
Yeah.
stings.
What a freak injury! I never really hear about this. He like hurt his finger, and then there's complications in the surgery where it was a more complex surgery than initially believed, and so now he's out for what they say like 6 weeks,
6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks, just a long time for a finger.
Yeah.
But
Dude,
obviously
this
a
sucks.
quarterback.
I have Russell
Yeah.
Wilson in so many leagues, and this just really hurts, especially because it's like you said, it's a little hammer finger, right? It's not even
Yeah.
like, oh, he tore his ACL or oh, he's got a leg injury or a throwing arm. It's like, dude, a finger, damn it. Like
Yeah.
Back in my day, we would have cut the finger off and kept playing.
No, and the thing that I don't think I saw talked about a lot. So the Seahawks are what now 2-3.
Yeah.
Over their next 6 to 8 games, especially playing in that division, how many of those games do you think they win to the point where like we've seen with a lot of teams when the star is out for a while and by the time they come back, if the team's completely out of playoff contention, do they maybe let them rest a little bit longer? Do they bring them back?
I
think
think
that's
Russell Wilson's gonna wanna
Russ is
come
coming
back.
back. I just think they've got a primetime game this week against Frank Steelers. Even though he's been accused of being an Eagles fan.
Dude,
somehow.
I swear that the Steelers are gonna fuck this up. I'm telling you
Yeah.
right now,
Against
the
Geno
Steelers
Smith?
are Geno Smith is gonna go out there and just shred the Steelers. This is just that kind of game on prime time against a backup quarterback. We're just gonna get shredded. It's gonna be so frustrating.
I don't know about you guys, but I just feel like Russell Wilson was like the super glue keeping this team together. Like,
He was.
keeping them from failing. I can't see Geno Smith going in and winning many games.
No,
You know
their
what's
defense
funny
terrible.
is that I feel like every single year the Seahawks are like shuffling around coaches, and they still somehow find like the worst coordinators in the league. It's just
Well,
like
at the end of
this is
the
a
day,
separate discussion, but
everything runs through Pete Carroll, and I think Pete Carroll is not a very good head coach.
I was about to. I think Russell Wilson has prevented Pete Carroll from getting fired for years. They botched nearly every draft. They can't put a good defense on the field this season. Really, since the Legion of Boom, it hasn't been great.
but
and
like,
then now we have
players on their
OCs coming
defense
in and
really
out.
aren't outside of the corner position. Like it's really not terrible. It's just
It's not good.
What the fuck? You run the same defense every game at like basically every freaking play. Everyone knows what the hell you're doing, and it's just completely taking advantage of you. You know, you're in a.
Yeah.
Let's just move on here. I'm gonna start.
Yeah,
going
you're getting into your other podcast talk. All right. CH. It looked bad.
Sucks.
He got carried off the field by Tyreek Hill, and I forget who else was helping him off. It didn't look bad at first when I first saw it live, and then like he was rolling around and everything. And it's like, gosh. I know he's on IR, but is it season ending? I don't think
it's not season ending. It's an MCL injury. I'd probably expect him to miss 4 to 5 weeks. Around
Loon.
a month. I know. I'm just reading what I see from doctors online, but because I try to
swear doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them were people that like worked for teams and they just are now online. But I think that's what I saw. So it's not season ending, but it just sucks. He just had like finally you get to see like the 2 weeks prior to this week. He had like his 2 best weeks of the season back to back, and then this happens and it's unlucky.
Honestly, dude, I think it's lucky for CEH because I think that he was en route to a freaking dud, goose egg type performance.
Against Buffalo?
Dude,
I
I
mean,
like CH coming out. I thought he was a good prospect, like because I was a guy that like that LSU team. I liked a lot of their players the year before that they won the national championship, not on the level that like they eventually became, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire was definitely like a relatively hyped prospect at the running back position coming in. I liked it because he was really good in the passing game. He's just a good player. I think this is the window to sell, honestly.
You think now is the window?
Because his price is still going to be high. I think that you could get still a good price for CEH while being hurt.
I've always been team sell CEH, so I guess I'm not opposed to you selling him now. I don't know, maybe wait until just stash him on your IR for a couple weeks, and then when he's about to come back, sell him.
Yeah, I wouldn't force sell. I really think that you could still get a pretty damn good, like especially to like a rebuildy-esque team. And you're a competing team, and you want to get players that can help you compete, or just try and transition into assets that you can easily or trade for guys that can compete.
Do you think you could trade CEH for Cam Akers straight up?
I'd much rather have CEH. That's crazy.
I don't know. I think I'd rather have it.
That'd kill.
I don't know what the freaking Achilles injury, dude. I don't know what to make of that. To me, it's just he's out for a year and he's going to be fine next year.
But the point that I don't know, I don't want to deal with that.
Well, the thing is, we know CH hasn't really been improving. We know CH is someone that you should probably try and back out of. We don't know what Cam Akers is going to end up being. And so I'm at the point of like, what I do know is Darrell Henderson has looked really good now because he just gets all of the carries for the Rams. And that's something very rare in this NFL. So if Cam Akers is able to get back and get that position, he immediately catapults into the top 7 running backs, top 8 running backs, just off that alone. And I don't see CH ever getting back to that spot. Like he was rated that high before. He's just not ever going back up there again.
I just think that there's going to be enough people saying, "Oh, buy low on CH with the injury," that his price is going to be higher than realistically what it should be.
Yeah. Well, we can put to bed one of Lounis's predictions, though, of CH being a top 7 running back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, dude, we can get into the waiver wire because it's basically just the backups to all of these players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of a backup, Daryl Williams now, Jerrick McKinnon, the running backs of the Chiefs. I mean, I thought that Daryl Williams would have been a little bit more involved to start the year, considering how good he looked in the playoff run last year. Now he's going to be forced into a role here. What are we thinking about Daryl Williams or possibly Jerrick McKinnon being relevant?
What makes it? I want to say like just throw a ton of fab on Daryl Williams, but they were using McKinnon a decent amount.
Neither of these guys excite me, and we've also seen news coming out that the Chiefs. I mean, I will say whenever we see news come out, I just don't think it will happen afterwards. But we saw the Chiefs were interested in Marlon Mack. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced they won't go and look elsewhere too for a different running back.
The first thing I thought when I saw, despite how good Jonathan Taylor looked last night, with them like leaving Mack in the game at stretches, I kind of think it was an audition for a possible trade. A little bit. I think they wanted.
That's the only thing that makes sense. I don't know if we're giving the Colts too much credit, but that's the only thing that makes sense.
That's why, because Jonathan Taylor was playing amazing. There was no reason to bring him out of the game, but I just thought they wanted to show like, yo, Max still has some explosiveness. Give us something for it. That's what I thought, because he hadn't played up until that game, really.
I mean, I'll tell you what, the Chiefs right now desperately need to be able to run the football because teams are just plopping 2 safeties. I mean, it's been like this, it feels like, for the past year and a half, but now, because the Chiefs' defense is a little bit worse and Mahomes he's obviously still great. He's still Mahomes, but this is probably the most we've seen Mahomes struggle, quote unquote, because he's not really struggling in his career at this point. He's not just absolutely torching everyone week in and week out, which for Mahomes standards is struggling. So like, they need to be able to run the football and be able to be a little bit more of a patient offense, which they aren't going to be able to do until they can run the ball consistently, it seems like.
Yeah, defenses are daring them to run the football.
I would
That's pretty much the
drop.
thing.
I have Daryl Williams in a couple leagues. He was to me a high value handcuff. What I saw off the playoff performances last year, I would drop a lot of fab on him simply because I think that you could easily stonk him for relevant draft capital. He has one good week to the team with CEH or whatever. I do think that you could pick swap your way into a contender second, a halfway decent third, maybe even more than that. I really do think that there's an opportunity to get some good value out of a player that's going to be irrelevant after this season and for the remainder of time.
I don't know. I guess out of the people that we're going to talk about, he's probably the one that I would drop the fab on. But it does come with the risk of the Chiefs just go out and get someone else, and then he does not really worth us that much. But of these guys, that's what I'd say. All right, are we gonna move on to the next guy?
Yeah.
All right, so Devontae Booker, obvious backup for. Well, I don't know how obvious actually, because we saw Gary Brightwell still get some playing time too. But Devontae Booker, Saquon's out 2-3 weeks. It's intriguing, but it's kind of like
That's the thing.
Chuba Hubbard, but without the rookie upside.
Yeah, I was about to say, because I think he'll put up like playable flex numbers for like the 2-3 weeks. I think he'll be at the point where you can like put him at your flex and be all right. But it's just how much fab are you going to drop on someone who's only going to be in that spot for like 2 or 3 weeks?
I think it's a little bit of a bait though, because dude, the Giants are going into every game basically playing Saquon every snap that he can take. And when he gets hurt, you're just not going to dress a ton of running backs, and the Giants just don't do it. So Devontae Booker, and Gary Brightwell played a little bit, but Devontae Booker, I think, is a bait to me because he has the perception that, oh, look, he's going to get all these carries. But I think we're going to see the Giants what they did last year. They're just going to be a committee team running 3 running backs. I mean, maybe you can get a little Wayne Gallman type of action in, but I'll drop my fab on him, but I'm not expecting anything.
How much fab are both of you? Would you say
fab
is
like
fucking
Fugazi. I don't care about fab. I'll drop 100 fab on someone that I think I can get a 3rd round pick out of.
All right. From a more like rational perspective, I wouldn't be dropping like a more than like 10-15% on Booker.
I was gonna say I might go up to 20, but that's the absolute max.
Bro, if you're relying on any of these dudes,
that's luck. What I'm saying. Like if you feel like, I mean, you have to be in a semi-deep league or just gone 0 RB in your startup kind of thing. But if you're relying on Devontae Booker to put you give you good weeks, like you're in a tough spot.
Yeah.
I don't know, 10-15%. He's not a long-term guy. He might have one good week. There's no real upside with Devontae Booker. All right, moving on. One of the few guys to beat Bill Belichick, I believe, twice in his rookie year. Definitely once. Geno Smith, replacing Russell Wilson. Yeah. Geno Smith. We talked about Russell Wilson out 6 to 8 weeks. I think you guys said that's significant amount of time for Geno Smith. He's someone that if I feel shaky about my quarterback situation, I'll drop like nearly all my fab. It's so hard to find good quarterbacks. Yeah. He's not good, but he's a quarterback.
I was about to say he's someone who I'd actually drop a decent amount of fab on. One, if you're not confident in your quarterbacks. That's two, if you only have 2 and you want someone to fill in on those bye weeks, he's someone who'll be fine. Like I don't think he looked like terrible last week.
And he's going to randomly tear apart the Steelers defense.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Let's put it in like context. Like people last year were climbing over each other to spend all their fab on Ben DiNucci. Now you have Geno Smith, who at least has shown he could be an NFL quarterback and like can play, which we didn't really see from Ben DiNucci.
Dude, that offense is good too. Like they kind of have to throw the ball because Chris Carson seems to be out, and I mean it's Alex Collins. Like Alex Collins can get you 5 yards, but dude, he's a halfway decent player, but did you see him running last Thursday? Like he just kind of looked so awkward on some plays.
Oh yeah, no, he's not going to get too many rushing yards.
Like, you're going to have to throw the ball. And Geno Smith has shown he can throw the ball. It's not like you're like, oh, Geno Smith, God forbid we ask this guy to throw the ball 20 times.
No, yeah. The only reason I say to drop a lot, it's rare when you can get a waiver quarterback who will play like almost half the season. Yeah. That's not like absolutely awful.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily rare, but it happens a handful of times, and this is the opportunity to strike.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one issue is they are working out Blake Bortles, but to me, I just feel like that's
for the backup role.
Yeah, it's the backup role. All right. Last guy on our waiver wire, we're talking Texans wide receiver Chris Moore. Actually, I guess I could say he went off against the Patriots. I mean,
that game was so just made zero sense.
In Chris Moore terms, I guess, like he went off. Like it just was like I forget if he was the flea flicker touchdown or if he was the blown coverage touchdown where Davis Mills underthrew the ball and the secondary like J.C. Jackson like tried to intercept it but couldn't and then caught it and ran upfield. I forget which one that was for Chris Moore's touchdown, but either way, just like gimmicky kind of thing. To me, I'm not even considering picking up Chris Moore. I don't know about you guys.
Deep league, why not? I don't think there's going to be a ton of competition, so I wouldn't say to throw like anything more than 1 or 2 fab on him just to beat out the 0 or 1 bidder offers. I don't mind. Here's the one thing I'll say about Chris Moore. Like, there's a problem, and then there's like a little bit of upside. And the problem is that there's just a lot of receivers injured for the Texans. The upside, though, is that, dude, the Texans' offense passing the football has actually been pretty good. It's been inconsistent, but they've been able to throw the ball really well a lot of these games, which people were not expecting. And this is without Tyrod Taylor now. I'm not coming out here and acting like the Texans are going to be a great offense, but if they're an average passing offense, there's going to be value. And when you're a team like the Texans just looking for any sort of spark, why can't Chris Moore be a guy that gets 7-8 targets in another game and another chance to really prove himself?
And to kind of back up Frank's point also with their passing offense, they're going to be playing behind from a lot of games. So a lot of these receivers there are just going to get a ton of garbage time points. I'd agree with Frank's assessment though, where if you want to drop like 1, 2, or 3 fab just to beat out the people with 0, go ahead. I don't know if I'd do much more than that.
I feel like this was very much a fluke game, and it's like because it came at the expense of Brandon Cooks only had a few targets, like didn't really do a whole lot. I think he only had like 21 yards. I'm making that number up. I don't actually know what he had. I checked earlier, but don't have that on me right now. I still think they're going to involve Nico Collins. We haven't seen it yet a whole lot. I just think at best Chris Moore's going to end up being the third option on this already like depleted team, and if any other talent ever comes in, like he's just out. Like there's no reason to have Chris Moore. So that's why I'm kind of like not.
Yeah, I agree with that, JT, but I think that a lot of people have the same idea as you, and that's why they're not willing to put any fab or only 1 fab.
Yeah, it's fair. If you have the roster space,
if you're reaching for anything, like for 2 fab, you could get a guy that has Tim Patrick level upside, which isn't anything crazy, but if you're a rebuilding team that has roster spots, that could net you a 3rd round pick.
That's true.
I don't know. I don't see a world where Chris Moore's getting you a 3rd round pick, but
we've seen crazier things happen.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. We're going to break down our dynasty in Twitter. On Twitter, Elijah Mitchell returns. Sermon only gets 2 snaps. I think that's actually our dynasty, but
the Chronicles of the 49ers football team this year.
I don't know. And didn't Sermon just looked really good the week before, if I'm not wrong?
And he looked fine in his 2 touches too. Yeah. Well, all right. So I was watching the Baldy breakdowns. I have a love-hate relationship with Brian Baldinger. Yeah, he's very energetic. But he made a point of like you got this like rookie quarterback in Trey Lance and a little side divergent, but like you're splitting Elijah Mitchell outside, like you're running all these weird different schemes and whatnot with the 49ers. It just seemed like Kyle Shanahan was like trying to be too cute or too smart, and it's just like you have Elijah Mitchell, he looks solid. You have Trey Sermon, he looks solid. This is an Arizona Cardinals defense that has J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones on the opposite side of the field as you. Like, why not just use those guys, pound the rock kind of thing. Like give Trey Lance some space to breathe. I will say part of the reason why he didn't have a whole lot of space to breathe is like Mike McGlinchey and some of the guards and whatnot of the 49ers did not look good. They did not look good. So I don't know. I guess this is Elijah Mitchell's backfield for now, but it could change next week. Who knows?
I agree with you, though, JT, is that the 49ers kind of came into this game and were like, hey, Trey Lance, just go win against the hottest team I think the second hottest team in football right now.
He got hit with the Jalen Hurts.
I'm looking at it now. Outside of Trey Lance, you had 12 guys with or 12 total rush attempts, with Trey Lance having the majority at 16 carries. I think that you're right in that they should run the ball more. It's just weird to see what's going to happen going forward, because I think, okay, clearly if you're an Elijah Mitchell rosterer, like there's a lot of, like, you're seeing a lot of upside because, like, oh, he's the guy that's playing every snap. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I don't think that this is the end for Trey Sermon. I really don't. I can envision a world where at the end of the year that Trey Sermon is the number one running back, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, oh, what the hell happened last night? Because you have to remember with these Shanahan guys, like the Shanahan types, right? McVay and all them, a lot of these wide zone kind of dudes, they'll take running backs, and then, like, look at Cam Akers. The dude didn't play for like half the year, and then all of a sudden, week 9 or 10, the dude is all of a sudden randomly one game gets like 25 carries, and then he's the bell cow.
Yes, against the Patriots.
Yeah. Why can't that happen with Trey Sermon?
It definitely
Why can't that happen?
It definitely
can. We've seen crazier shit with Shanahan. This dude 1 week is like, yeah, let's go Ayuk 90 times, and then the next year it's like he's in jail.
Okay,
sure field. Okay, wide receiver 1.
we can piggyback the panic meter on Ayuk. I think we took him off for that reason, but it's like these are Shanahan guys that he drafted. They're not just random guys. They're not just random guys that showed up on your team. And we saw what Trey Lance on his interception throw on the first drive of the game. He was targeting Travis Benjamin. He's targeting Travis Benjamin. Why is Travis Benjamin on the field? Why is Brandon Ayuk not on the field? And we saw what Brandon Ayuk could do when you actually made plays to him. Trey Lance had 2 really nice tight window throws to Brandon Ayuk. Because you know why? It's a receiver you feel comfortable with. Same thing with Deebo Samuel. You have these 2 really good playmakers on your team. I know Kittle's hurt, but you have him too. Why not just scheme up the plays to him? Yeah, I mean, maybe rookie Trey Lance also like wasn't. Normally when you're a rookie though, you go to your first read, but like maybe he was panicking out of certain plays and whatnot. But I don't know why we're not scheming up plays for those guys. They're your playmakers.
I'm just treating all of these players outside of Deebo Samuel and George Kittle as if they're rookies still. I mean, Sermon and Elijah Mitchell are rookies, but like Ayuk
and Trey Lance,
it's just another freaking rookie season because clearly Shanahan doesn't trust him yet.
I was gonna say, are you buying low on any of them?
I'm buying low on every single one of these dudes. This offense is too much talent to not be good. Like, I'm not gonna come out here and overpay a shit ton for them. And if you're a contender, I would be really wary about giving like really solid contender assets for him. But at the end of the day, I still believe in Sermon as a talent. I still believe in Ayuk as a talent. And I still like Elijah Mitchell. So if the price is right and there's an owner panicking enough, I will gladly buy any one of these dudes.
I don't necessarily disagree. I feel like the price probably still hasn't gone down though to the point of where.
Well, you could probably get Sermon now for maybe like a mid-second. Are you paying a mid-second for Sermon?
I mean, that's probably where you might be able to.
I think you may be able to MacGyver your way into something cheaper, but yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
I think I would too.
I mean, a 2022 mid-second to me, like if you know you're a playoff team, I'm sure. I don't think the 2022 class is that deep where you're giving up too much.
Well, okay, we can get into one of the other topics that we wanted to discuss here. So there's a Reddit thread that Lounis brought to my attention. Hold on, I'm trying to get it on the screen for the YouTube gang. Okay, here we go. Kadarius Toney is a perfect example of why you should not trust the sub for future players' values. Basically, the whole point of this is people are overreacting a ton in either direction, right? Before the season, you have people, including JT, but JT's at least been consistent, where
I'm
it's like,
still
oh,
sticking to it.
I wouldn't pay for Kadarius Toney at all. You know, I think he's the worst player ever. And then you have, I mean, you could just go to so many examples. This guy brought up Rondale Moore. Some dude was saying he's going to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL this year. And this is kind of the same theory that I'm going with a lot of these 49ers, like Trey Sermon specifically, is like, we're so quick to, not necessarily me. I feel like a lot of people are so quick to judge rookies like 5, 6, 7 games into the season, not realizing that what happens week 8 on is what, to me, really matters. That's when the rookies are no longer rookies. And that's when, you know, teams like shit is actually hitting the fan a little bit. Guys' jobs are starting to be on the line. Playoffs are starting to come around. Like, that's when the teams are really starting to rely on some of these young players. And dude, there's like so many examples every freaking year. Cam Akers is one that we already brought up. Jonathan Taylor was a consensus bust. And then by the first 8 weeks of the season, then second half of the season, he's a top 3 consensus dynasty running back.
Yeah.
You know, this is a thing that is a major problem in the dynasty community right now, is that we have these people, and I think it's a lot of them from redraft, to be completely honest, where we are so reactionary, and it is just driving the prices of players freaking roller coastering all over the freaking place.
I mean,
in
what
both
are they doing,
directions,
Frank?
and it's absurd.
Wait, Frank, I missed that. What are the players doing?
Roller coastering.
Okay, thank you. I just think that, like, the issue with this is that anyone can post on the sub. Like, anyone can. And sure, I guess if you're like breaking into the scene and whatnot, and you're trying to get your opinions out there, it's fine and everything. But like, we're in a hot take thing where if you don't have a hot take, like, your posts aren't going to climb to the top. You're not going to get noticed. And to me, also, it's like there's no way of verifying, really, unless you dive into each person's comment history and posts, like who's who. Like, I don't pay attention enough to the sub to know like which guys are high on what players and which guys have what biases and whatnot. Like, there's no way to really trust any of this information. Like, so it's hard to buy into any kind of player when they're posted on the dynasty stuff. And then to your point about redraft, Frank, it's crazy to me that like everyone is now convinced that Kadarius Toney is a good player. Like, he's had one good solid game last week, and he had one really good game this week. But he had one really good game at the expense of all other Giants pass catchers were out of the game. There was no other Giant passer catcher in the game. And I just don't know what he's going to do when Shepard and Slayton and Galladay and Saquon come back.
I don't want to, because we had the Kadarius Toney segment last week. I don't want to turn this into because I actually really liked what I saw out of Kadarius Toney last week, but that's a different discussion. I just think that patience is so needed in Dynasty, and it is so undervalued and underappreciated right now. Dude, I'm in a league where I have held guys like James Conner for like 9 seasons, it feels like. And dude, like the roller coaster in the Dynasty stuff, I mean, he's been a buy low and a sell high and a sell low and a buy high like every year 4 freaking times over. And especially with the rookies, dude, like we're so quick to judge who's a bust or not. Like, this isn't the best example, but it's one I can think of off the top of my head. Van Jefferson, right? Everyone would have thought Van Jefferson is out for dead. You know, like, oh, why are you even rostering him? And while, you know, he's not like a groundbreaking player or anything, but you've seen like, oh, well, last year he was a rookie and now he's playing and like could still progress and be relevant. And if you look at so many players, like especially the second, third round plus players, most of these players, if they have a top 24 season, over 85% of the time, it's in year 2 and beyond. But we just don't care about that anymore, because I think it's the 2020 class, especially, that has spoiled people. And you've seen guys like even the Claypools of the world, who were considered developmental prospects, have a top 24 season. It's like, dude, if you don't have a good season as a rookie, you are all of a sudden
Well,
sparse, never again going to be good.
the issue with that though, and where I'm gonna move off that is like for every Van Jefferson, we also have like the Gabriel Davises and the Darnell Moonies and the Jalen Ragers right now who haven't shown us much in the second year yet. And if you could have pivoted those guys to other, similar guys who have better profiles, like you're feeling a lot better about your team right now. So there's like a weird balance that you have to get. I mean, Van Jefferson's just someone I could never get into. He's already like 25 years old, and it's like his second year in the league. Like, there's maybe ends up being good, but
it's a weird game. I mean, it's like guys that, like, for example, like a Hollywood Brown, like he hasn't really started to become himself until now his third season, where it was super consistent. What were you saying?
Well, he was super hyped. Was it at the beginning of like 2 seasons ago, last year, whatever you want to call it? Like, dude, I traded Hollywood Brown in the 4th pick for Dalvin Cook, and then that was Dalvin Cook before, when he's like, dude, he's like a consensus top 3 running back. That was before DeAndre Swift entered the question and stuff.
The true test to me though of like where this like sub becomes like kind of like a redraft sub is Mike Williams, who we didn't see anything from him. Well, we saw one like 1,000-yard season, and we saw like 1 10-touchdown season, and for 4 years he didn't really prove a whole lot. Like he didn't give you that great of season, and now through 5 games he's jumped up to, I think he's a top 15, definitely a top 20 wide receiver right now. And people forget he's going to be 27. I think he might sign back with the Chargers. He might not sign back with the Chargers. Who knows? But he's just going to be like an older player on his, I think, 2nd, 3rd contract. So it's like, I don't know. Is he worthy of being that high? Like, we're basing that off 5 games where he played really well. 4 games, really. He didn't play well 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we haven't even got through half a season of play, and we're all of a sudden deeming him like... Well, so kind of going back a couple of points, because you brought up a really interesting point where you group together guys like Darnell Mooney, Gabriel Davis with Jalen Reagor. I know a lot of people are selling the face planners probably because of DF Bean Counter on Twitter, because that's his
definitely
one of his things, right? If you have a 1st-round pick that's a bust, like you might as well get rid of him before he goes into mediocrity. And I actually agree with that, because I mean, if you look at the 1st-round pick receivers, if they're going to have a breakout season, about half of the time it's in their rookie year, if they ever break out. But when you look at more developmental players, 2nd-round picks, 3rd-round picks, guys that I would just shove on my taxi squad for 2 years, that's where I start to disagree with a little bit, where it's like, I use the Van Jefferson example because there was never any hype around Van Jefferson, really, aside from like
training camp hype. Yeah,
he was a 3rd-round pick in rookie draft.
Yeah, I picked him up. I picked him up in a league in like the last pick of the 3rd round, I think, or the 2nd to last pick of the 3rd round. And I just have my taxi squad. I still do, and I'm fine with that. I'm willing to be patient, and then I will sell if I don't see anything in year 3, right? And I mean, there's countless like look at Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was like a consensus bad pick for the first 2 years. And if you held firm, all of a sudden you have one of the top running backs in fantasy football. So, like you said, there's a really weird mix of being patient, but also selling on hype and selling to guys that are just less risky and have an actual profile.
I agree.
To me... Go ahead, Lounis. I'll jump back.
I was gonna say it's more. This is more where, kind of as a fantasy football owner, like being able to make your own evaluations on guys. Roster manager.
There we go.
So this is where it's going to come down to being able to make your own evaluations on guys by actually watching them rather than just like box score or following narratives. Because, like you mentioned, there are those receivers where it's like, oh, they were a bust in their rookie year, and then you would have been way better off selling them after that rookie season. And then there were times where you just have to pay attention and try to be able to judge. And obviously there's chances involved with anything if this person's going to improve, like in their 2nd, 3rd year. If someone was super high on like we talked about Hollywood Brown, and we've seen other players like Derrick Henry suddenly blow up in his third season. So that's you have to actually watch some of your guys. I know it's kind of surprising, but it's
But the thing is too is it is hard to predict that kind of crap.
That's what I'm saying. It is a chance, but
I sold low on Derrick Henry because I thought that, like, dude, I just didn't like what I saw, and then all of a sudden it boned me, you know. Like,
but I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Someone like Elijah Moore. He hasn't done anything this year, really. But when I've just seen him just on like his plays that he's in, when I see it's just kind of a shit show of an offense most games, and I see him running good routes, get some separation. It just hasn't really happened yet. So he's someone where it's like, if his rookie season doesn't go well, I'm not giving up on him. But it, like I said, it depends on situations.
My thing is, I think it's, to me, kind of easy where it's, if you have a day 3 pick, like rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, especially at the wide receiver position, and that guy plays well, like, I'll ship him off for, you know, like, especially the cases of Darnell Mooney's and Gabriel Davis's where they're ranked around second round pick. I take that every day, because then you just get to re-roll that second round pick into a player that hopefully was drafted in the first 3 rounds and ends a prospect you like, because it's more likely than not that they're not going to be good. Like they might have just been a beneficiary of a weak depth chart or situation or whatnot. And same thing with like Quintez Cephas. Van Jefferson really didn't have the buzz, like you were saying, Frank, but even him I'd consider re-rolling. Then when you have like those players that were drafted higher, like, I'm willing to spend more time with them, I feel like, because they were drafted higher for a reason. But it does come with the, like, it's kind of just like a, the prospect kind of thing. Like if I felt really high about certain prospects and really low about certain prospects, that's going to sway my decision. Where if I'm not big on Najee Harris and say Najee Harris wasn't playing well, I'm willing to move Najee Harris for a separate, a lateral move and just hope that player plays well. I don't know. I think that's my philosophy. I think that's something I'm sticking towards.
My philosophy has, now I have leagues where I'm definitely like more patient and leagues where I'm more willing to trade. I think the league that I've been patient in, I've had guys that have panned out that you just really didn't expect to pan out, and guys have massively, like Hayden Hurst, right? I didn't draft Hayden Hurst, but I just picked him up in waivers. I held him for like a year, and then all of a sudden he went to the Falcons, and you were able to sell him for an early second round pick, right? Not that he ever became a stud player or anything, but stuff like that can happen if you just hold, especially if they have high draft capital. But how have always done it, hold on real quick, JT. How I've always done it is, if you have a player that they were drafted to fill a role, they were drafted to do something, and they are unable to do that successfully, that's just like a big red flag, right? And on the contrary, if you had, Antonio Gibson's a perfect example of this. If you had a preconceived notion of what you thought this guy was going to be, and they massively changed their role and change as a player going into the league, you then need to reevaluate from the offseason, because they're almost, not that they're a different player, but the role, the scheme, their body type a lot of the time will even change, right? Le'Veon Bell is another good example, right? And all of a sudden you have to completely pivot what your initial thoughts were on this guy pre-draft.
It sounds like you made the Article 12, Section 9 rule of 2020, the Mims-Gibson rule, where it's player that does poorly in situation that's supposed to be good, sell. Player that does well in their position that is separate, buy or hold.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Denzel Mims to me was, they brought in Brashad Perryman and Denzel Mims to stretch the field vertically. And this is one of the reasons why I know a lot of people are liking Pittman right now. I still don't love Pittman from a dynasty perspective. Like, I think he's a halfway decent player, but I just don't think he's just alpha number one that everyone wants him to be.
I saw someone trying to make the case on Twitter yesterday that he was equivalent to like T. Higgins. I don't know if you guys
he
saw
had
that.
one good game. Like, you take the touchdown away, he has an average day at best. Even with the touchdown, it's an average day. To me, Pittman is a guy that the Colts have been desperately trying to get, a guy that can really stretch the field vertically since T.Y. Hilton has kind of fell off the face of the earth. Paris Campbell's gotten injured and now has lost a step. Michael Pittman has just been more of like a yards after catch kind of a guy. And to me, that's one of those scenarios where you kind of got a guy, you draft him to fill a role, and it hasn't really worked out. Now, Pittman isn't a terrible player, and he can still give you fantasy relevant weeks, and you can have him as a flex. Go ahead. I'd rather just re-roll him and see if I can get a guy that fills the role that he was drafted to be and has that what I feel upside and all that shit.
And for that reason, actually, ironically, to kind of stuff, I know this might be a little bit of a hot take. I'll take someone Ruggs over Pittman because I do think Ruggs is doing his role in Oakland.
I think at this point, I'm pretty sure that's not a hot take.
Just because the conception of those two players heading into this season was like very drastic. Or he's another guy who was kind of written off as a bust after the rookie year, where it's like if I see you excelling in the role that you got drafted to do, and that's been kind of the fault also with we bring up CEH. He was supposed to be like kind of what Gibson and Swift are now with their receiving abilities, and we haven't really seen that. So it's like when people look for like, oh, why isn't it working out like that? He's not doing what he was drafted to do. So that just kind of goes
in general, though. I think that it is better more often than not to be really patient, especially with your second and third round picks. Because those are the type of guys that their hit rates increase the longer you hold them. The first round picks and all that stuff. Okay, I'm fine. You can go ahead and panic on your first round picks and all that shit if you really want to. Because it's just a wacky game that you're playing with upside. But the later round guys, I'm always more patient on.
The issue, though, is we got spoiled last year where, like, most of the first-round players hit, and especially the quarterbacks, like, they came onto the scene early and played really well. And they're also, like, really, really good. And this year, none of the quarterbacks so far, the rookie quarterbacks, have looked that great. And so people are really panicking about that, but turns out they're just rookie quarterbacks and they need time to develop. Like very few come onto the scene and do what Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow was kind of doing.
Yeah, they changed what the conception. Yeah.
Listen, all I'm saying, I feel like I was the only freaking dude saying to start the veteran quarterbacks in the beginning of the offseason. You have all these dudes that are like,
you were. I still stand by though. You've learned by playing. Like the Chargers didn't like Justin Herbert didn't get worse because he got put in there so early. Like Joe Burrow didn't get worse because he got put in there so early. I get if you're trying to win and compete now, which I could say only the Bears.
I do think in some situations it depends, but while I do say in some situations it depends, I hate the argument that they always bring up with Mahomes. Like Mahomes sat for a year. I'm like, do you think if the Chiefs knew how good Mahomes would be in his second season that they wouldn't have played him any in his rookie season?
I mean, they kind of made the AFC Championship without him. It's not like
but their ceiling
they
changes.
Didn't have success.
I think with how good he was his second season, I think if they knew he'd be that good, I don't know. But I don't like that argument as much. But I do think that sometimes do. But I'm with you, JT, generally on that.
At least with the quarterbacks, though, if you want to panic, we mentioned this in earlier podcasts that there's enough apologists for basically every first-round quarterback that you can get in like basically every league. You can get a good price for what you believe is an underperforming quarterback. But I'm just going to be more patient more times than not, and I think that the dynasty community in general should be more patient more times than not. And just the way that things are going, JT said with the hot takes and how you get clicks and the narratives and shit and the victory lappers especially, patience seems to be foregone in this day and age.
I mean, I kind of want to hijack this a little bit and just jump around a little bit and take us to the panic meter. Because with that, I think like I'm going to add something right now, guys. Like, are you panicking yet about any of the rookie quarterbacks? Have you seen any of these rookie quarterbacks that you're like?
So here's what makes it so complicated. And Frank, I recognize you and acknowledge you as someone who, you weren't as low on Josh Allen's rookie year as a lot of people were. You've talked about that a few times. You said like you kind of thought
Josh Allen was great his rookie year.
Yeah, and no, that's why I always give you credit for that, because there were a lot of people who were low on him after his rookie season. Am I wrong with that, JT? Would you say it's accurate? There were a lot of people that were.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Yeah.
I was definitely one of them. Yeah.
So exactly. So, and that's where I'll give you credit, Frank. But there were a lot of people who were low on him, saying not accurate, too many picks, reckless player. Where it becomes complicated with some of these quarterbacks, and where like you really just need to watch and evaluate their situation. For every Josh Allen, there's a Josh Rosen. Like with some of these guys who don't really do well their rookie year, and you have to be kind of being able to judge if you think they'll be able to bounce back from it or not. So from these rookie quarterbacks, I don't know if I'm willing to go too far yet, because even if any of these guys have a terrible full season, you could still get a good offer for them after the rookie year. Like, regardless of how good or bad they play, you're going to be able to get good offers for them. Because, like I said, like Frank said, there's apologies for every rookie QB, because we've seen situations where they can turn it around their second season.
I'm one of them. I'll give an early first for Zach Wilson still.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so there are probably people who are out there starting to worry about Zach Wilson. Personally, I just think he's too talented. So for me to like worry with, like, he can make throws that not many NFL QBs can make. I'm at this point in time, I'm not ready to put the panic meter on any of them.
Oh, really? It sounded like you were about to panic on one of them.
Here's the one thing with Zach Wilson that is annoying, is that it's tough to try and discern if he's just like playing like shit and just if he's just bad with, or if it's, because now, he went from an offense where he's taking shotgun snaps. His footwork isn't tied to the routes at all. He's kind of he's able to take the snap, scan the field, and then just start doing whatever the hell he wants once the play breaks down. And he's running easy air raid-esque concepts. Now he goes to an offense where the timing of the routes really matters. His footwork really matters. He's doing a lot of play action where, he's turning his back to the defense for a second, half a second, has to turn around and then instantly know where to go with the football. And you can, once you start taking that into perspective, it's kind of easy to understand, oh, well, yeah, that's kind of annoying compared to what he's doing at college. Maybe that's why his accuracy sucks. It's like you have to turn your back for a second and kind of just know, oh, my guy's going to be 2 yards from the hash, instantly go to turn around and throw. There's a guy in your face, and like there's so many things going on. So I'm not willing to sell any of that. I will say, though, Trey Lance looks really good.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I mean, there were some people that were saying that he like struggled and what. Dude, I think that Trey Lance has improved the most for me.
I was about to say, the people who were saying, I feel like it's a lot of box score watchers that's like occasionally maybe checking in on the game. Because the one thing that stood out when I looked at the stats post game, and I watched pretty much that entire Cardinals 49ers game, he played a lot better than what his stats indicated for that game, in my opinion. The stats didn't look like super impressive or anything besides obviously the rushing upside for fantasy, but I thought he was better than how his stats look. So I'm with you on Trey Lance.
To me, like I've kind of gotten invested in Trey Lance since I traded for him. But yeah. I just think, like, I was watching him. They're definitely really, really good plays, right? Like where he's finding Deebo Samuel in these tight little windows. Same thing with Brandon Ayuk. But there are also plays where I was like, all right, you tucked it down and ran a little too quickly. Oh, you waited too long on your first read that you should have hit. Like you hesitated too much, and then you go and look at a different bad option, and that doesn't work. Or you're just too jittery and you throw it too high and you overthrow your receiver. There's definitely that, and especially when he rolled out, he wouldn't make that snap decision right away. And then you had, I think they had like 10 holds that game. It was a ridiculous number of holds. And some of it was the offensive line bad play. But part of it was also Trey Lance just not making that snap decision. So, but to me, that's a rookie. Like, you're a rookie quarterback.
That's what I'm saying. Those are common mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like we're not in the room, so it's hard to tell sometimes, even when watching the All-22, exactly what, because you can have, the funny thing about football is that all the plays are the same, but the way that they're coached could be wildly different, especially depending on what system you're in. Because like you could have an air raid type of scheme where you're running a Mills concept, like a dig and a post, and then you have some sort of little underneath route where you're supposed to look underneath to intermediate, then to deep. And then in some other concepts, you're supposed to look deep to intermediate to underneath, right? And something as minute as that can completely wildly change how a quarterback plays and whatnot. The thing for me with Trey Lance, though, the dude's athletic as fuck. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap. This dude's an athlete. Like, he's an athlete. He's not just, because you could say, oh, we're all athletes. Justin Fields is fast. Oh, Zach Wilson. No. Trey Lance is really athletic to the point where if I'm a defensive coordinator, I am scared that this guy's going to beat us with his legs.
You have to account
and that's
for
the same thing that I hate the Josh Allen comparison, because I really don't think it's a great comparison, but it is in this regard, in that Josh Allen was the same way coming into the league. As a passer, he's super underdeveloped, but the dude was able to make plays with his legs. And it's not like he relies on it necessarily, but that's a huge element to his game. That, look at Mahomes. Yeah, Mahomes is making great throws left, right, and center. How many times a game does this dude run for 14-yard first downs, it seems like? You know how fucking annoying that is for a defense?
Or just all those touchdowns passes he's able to make because he's able to escape the pocket.
Yeah,
and just
it's just like infuriating, because like there's no, oh, we're going to keep him in the pocket because, like, okay, he'll beat us with his arm. Oh, well, we can't rush him because then he just jukes a guy out and still makes throws. It's like, that's what I feel like I'm getting out of Trey Lance now.
Yeah, I just think you gotta remember, with Kyle Pitts, who's 20, like just turned 21, Trey Lance is also just like newly 21. Like, these are young guys that have a lot of time to develop. And where I'll go with that is like with a little more of developmental, like knowing the game and experience, because again, he played in FCS and whatnot, and now we're in the NFL, and better play calling from Shanahan, because I mean it was his first game, so but
I was about to say,
like
that's sorry, Coach.
there was questionable play calls. Yeah, go ahead, Linus.
Yeah, I was gonna say the play calling didn't really help. I thought they should have ran the ball more. I agree with you guys too. That's a tough first start. That is a tough first start.
Yeah.
At Arizona, divisional rival, and your O-line's not playing great. You know the Cardinals have a good pass rush. That's tough. Like, to ask a rookie to do in their very first start. And I thought, considering the circumstances, he was pretty good.
I know we just derailed us. I know I derailed.
Oh yeah, we just fucked the whole episode up. But
I thought that was good though.
We're gonna have to speed run
real
some
quick.
shit.
Yeah, real quick. Rank your quarterbacks from least panicked to most panicked. I'll start, I guess. I think least panicked. This is tough, but I think I'm still going to say Trevor Lawrence. Then I'm going to say Trey Lance 2, Justin Fields 3, Mac Jones 4, Zach Wilson 5. Zach Wilson's who I'm most panicked on.
I'm gonna go least panicked Trey Lance, second least Trevor Lawrence. I'm not panicked at all about either of them. Third, Fields. Mac Jones or Wilson is tough. I'll actually go Zach Wilson, then Mac Jones.
I'm gonna go
Mac Jones most panicked.
Yeah.
Least panicked. Lawrence 1, Mac Jones 2, Trey Lance 3, Zach Wilson 4, Justin Fields 5. But I'm not really panicked on any of them outside of Justin Fields. But that's because I didn't really want Justin Fields to begin with. So, like, that's kind of preconceived notions more so than panic.
All right, fair. So, kind of seems like Zach Wilson's leading our camp as most panicked, but
I still want to buy Zach Wilson. I still really like him as a player.
I know. You asked us before the pod if you could get a trade done trying to get Zach Wilson. Frank is still in on Zach Wilson. All right, I derailed us. I don't have him. But
so let's panic. Let's panic on the panic meter and start speed running it.
Okay.
All right, TJ Hockenson, kind of panicked. Well, at the price he's at, I'm kind of panicked. I think
tight end 4.
I mean, he's still got to be tight end 4 or 5. Yeah, I'd rather other players than Hockenson.
Superflex league.
Let's see.
Ask who would you rather have?
Tight end 4 he is.
Hockenson, DJ Moore. Ryan Tannehill. Choose between those.
Is the Superflex tight end premium?
Yeah.
I'm still taking DJ Moore, I think, but that's tough.
I'm going more Hockenson Tannehill.
Same. I have the same rankings. I'm not panicked on him. I guess, like, maybe you could say Mark Andrews was better than him. I mean, it's the ultimate reactionary thing. Mark Andrews just had the game of his season, and Hockenson had a bad game. So,
this is going to be one of those times. This is going to be one of those times where it's like, I have this player, so maybe, like, take this with a grain of salt. But, like, if I could trade Hockenson for Noah Fant plus, like, I'd do that. I'd do that pretty easily.
Okay. That's fair. It depends on what the plus would be. Do you want to move to now the Raiders? Well, we kind of talked about the Raiders offense earlier.
Yeah, I'm not panicked at all. The
I'm
only thing is, if I had
panicked
Derek
about Raiders
Carr,
offense.
the only person I'm panicked about long term
is Derek Carr.
is Derek Carr is long term. Yeah. The thing I'll say though is like I was never high on Kenyon Drake to begin with. Really, like Josh Jacobs, I don't really care that much about. So to me, it's Carr, Waller, Ruggs, Edwards. They're rated where they're rated. I don't think they're going to go. Only one that I'm like actively trying to shop would be Derek Carr, just because I don't know what his future holds.
I agree.
I'm turning my crystal ball and I am seeing struggles in the Raiders' future.
For this season?
Hot take. That offense was good, dude. That offense was really good. And it's just tough to see that happen again. I'm not panicking enough to, I think, sell lower on anyone because I think that's going to be like, oh, if you try to sell Josh Jacobs, the person that you're trying to sell him to is going to be like, oh, well, without Gruden, like he's worthless. And I'm just going to be, okay, I'll just keep him.
Actually, I think Jacobs is a buy, but that's a separate topic.
The one thing I'll say with Jacobs, I wonder if they use him more in the passing game now.
It'll be interesting. It's going to be someone else calling plays, so we'll see.
I don't really imagine it. I don't know. I think if he was really good in the passing game, they would have already used him a lot more. I just think he is what he is. Although, who's to say? Because I think Jonathan Taylor has been better in the passing game, and they don't really use him a whole lot. So, I don't know. Coaching staffs are weird. All right. The Seahawks wide receivers. Mostly Tyler Lockett, I guess.
Yeah, because I feel like we had a consensus where DK is just so good where he's going to be able to produce. It's just more like, will Geno Smith be able to support two good fantasy wide receivers?
I'll say on my stardom sit-em, I have Tyler Lockett as a sit this week. I mean,
I'd be pretty concerned about him.
I'm not concerned. I feel like they're gonna torch the Steelers, man. Like you're just gonna be like,
you're just we stink. Poor old Steelers, poor us. We're gonna get blown out,
dude. This is just what happens. Prime time against a backup quarterback. We're gonna play down to the Seahawks.
I believe that they're gonna play down to the Seahawks, but I don't think it's gonna be your defense's fault.
Yeah, I think it's more gonna be.
What,
like
you think the Seahawks defense is gonna show up?
No, listen.
That's what we're betting on here. We're betting on the Seahawks defense to start covering.
Do you think Big Ben? Do you think Big Ben shows up?
I
audibly him slinging the pill last week.
I audibly gasped when he threw that touchdown to Deontay Johnson. I was like, "How the fuck?" Like it's like I haven't seen that in a season.
He did it last game too.
I had the same reaction then. It's a rare occurrence.
No hating. Big Ben's back. We out here.
I don't know how we ended up on the Steelers on the Seahawks thing, but
punched over.
To Lockett, you kind of, I don't know. Lockett, I just don't think is going to. So many of his points come from those long Russell Wilson touchdowns where he takes the top off of defense. Like,
yeah,
it's Geno Smith doing the same thing. Yeah, I don't know. All right, moving on. Last one on the panic meter. Odell, someone I really liked at the beginning of this offseason. I mean, I still like him, but it doesn't feel great when your team goes off for like 40-something points.
42 points.
You get two targets
for 20 yards.
You get
first thing
you get
has
like 3
to be said
fantasy points.
Is that Odell's still drawing coverage from the opposing team?
He is.
So it's not like teams don't respect Odell. I think the thing that pisses me off the most is that clearly the chemistry with him and Baker just isn't there.
Dude, I saw so many times, not so much this week, but in that Minnesota game the week before, Odell opened down the field and throwing behind him, it's frustrating.
Which is funny too, because the first couple of drives back, Odell and Baker, they had that really nice first down conversion where Odell was really covered and Baker threw him open and shit.
You know what changed though? I don't know how much of an effect it has because it wasn't his dominant hand and whatnot, but he has like a dislocated shoulder or torn. I don't know what
it's on the
his shoulder's messed up.
Yeah,
but like I don't know how much that is towards like guiding you and like if it affects your accuracy at all or whatnot. Like even just a slight change will cause things to be off.
I will say, if you look at the stat sheet, if you look at analytics, if you look at just all these factors, the history and whatnot, everything points to Odell's gonna be fine. He's a buy low, all that.
I
But
But
agree.
then when you watch the games, you're like, I don't want to buy this guy. Like it's weird, man.
I just wish he'd get traded. I don't even think it makes sense for the Browns' sake to trade him, because obviously you're trying to compete. You want those weapons for Baker. But I just wish I could see him on another team, because I don't think it's him. I
mean,
just,
dude, if he was on the Chiefs, that'd be nasty, and they need
like,
an
or
Odell.
there, or like Green Bay. Like, I don't think it's him. I still think he's an extremely talented receiver.
I don't know.
I
think I'm gonna keep my initial thoughts on Odell. Is gonna hold firm. I'm gonna be patient, like we were preaching earlier. Where I still think he's more of a buy than a sell. I'd still look to ask what the price is for Odell, because I'm not the biggest Odell guy in the world, but at the end of the day, you could probably pick him up for seconds still.
Yeah.
If you're a contending team, I do think that he could be a nice little buy low scenario. I'm just not as gung ho as I would have been before, but still way more of a buy than a sell for me.
Well, speaking of buys and sells, let's just jump into our mid-season buys plus sells. We're going to toss out a few names every week. Whether they're buy highs, buy lows, sell highs, sell lows, or we'll tell you what we think. I guess I'll just kick us off right here. Dalvin Cook, I have him as a sell low. I know he just missed the past 2 weeks. I was looking at keep trade cut, which we discussed earlier, doesn't necessarily reflect the true changes of how people feel. But according to keep trade cut, he's dropped about 1,000 points in value since September 21st, which was about 3 weeks ago. To me, I think he's the perfect time to sell Dalvin Cook, especially if you don't think your team's a competing team. You can still easily get first plus value for him. You could get multiple firsts for him, likely. You could pivot into a younger running back that I might like. And I just think, like Dalvin Cook probably bounces back this year, but I don't know what he's going to be like next year. I don't think he's going to be that good. This might be me confirming my priors, but I was commenting in the Dynasty rep before. Like, I think he's going to be one of the guys that definitely drops a lot in value after the season or throughout the course of the season. So Dalvin Cook is someone that you can easily pivot to still very good young prospects, or even good like older prospects, like maybe a quarterback. Like maybe you want to move into I don't know what the difference is from Dalvin Cook to Russell Wilson, but I think Russell Wilson's still giving you 6 years. That might be a stretch, but I know Russell Wilson will still be good for 3 years. I don't know what Dalvin Cook will be, and I think Dalvin Cook is still valued higher than Russell Wilson. So take that.
I agree with you, JT. I didn't feel as strongly as you, and I do have Dalvin Cook in a league, but I'm going to keep him. The thing is, though, is that if you're worried about Dalvin Cook, which it sounds like you would be, you can still trade him for really flashy assets, way more liquid assets. And at the end of the day, I still feel like Dalvin Cook to me is not one of these top 5 running backs in terms of talent. I think he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I like Dalvin Cook coming out. But I do not think he's on that level of Nick Chubb. I do not think he's on that level of Christian McCaffrey. And I do not think he's on that level of even a Jonathan Taylor to a certain extent. I think he's in a really good system. I think he's developed very well, and he has a play style that could suit him for down the road. So I'm going to personally hold him in the league that I have him. But I do agree, especially coming into the season, and if you can get a top 5 price for him now, he's way more of a sell than a buy.
All right. Lounis, who you got for any buy highs, sell lows?
I got 2 buys. I don't know whether they're buy highs or buy lows because you guys gave me 2 different answers. I love Chase Claypool. Claypool is someone, the season Mike Williams is having right now. I think Claypool is capable of that like multiple years in a row. I think he's that talented of a receiver. I think he's someone who his deep threat ability hasn't been able to get fully utilized this year. We see Ben maybe throw 1 or 2 deep balls a game, and listen, I'm not putting that totally on Ben. Obviously, his arm isn't what it used to be, but that's also in part because of the O-line not like giving him a whole ton of time to be able to sit in the pocket and let those deep routes develop. I think that's something that's not going to stay permanent. And he's like, for an example, he's someone I like Claypool more than like a T. Higgins, even though T. Higgins is consensus probably valued higher. Claypool is someone who it's not really buying low because people still like him a lot, but he's just someone who I think's value is higher than what is generally viewed as right now. I just find him to be an insanely talented receiver. And the next guy is Ruggs. Now, this depends on the price. For what I've seen, he hasn't really getting still much hype, even though he's been improved this year. You could still probably get him for like a decent second, especially if an owner's just trying to, like, after a couple weeks, get rid of him. But I mean, after 5 weeks, he's the leader in the Raiders in receiving yards, and that's with there have been 4 or 5 plays this year where Derek Carr has just missed him by a yard or two deep, and I think those will start to connect. I think Ruggs, you're kind of gonna see not to the extent that Hollywood Brown has done this year, where it's like a top 10 receiver, but like just kind of that gradual progression over the years. And I think he's improved a lot of receiver. And for someone, if I can get him at like a 204 or 203 price for the 2022 draft, I would do that. He's on pace to have around 1,100 yards this season. Does that keep up? I don't know. I probably expect him to finish around 900-ish, 950. But he's someone, if you can still get cheap, that I like a lot.
All right. So with Claypool, like, I still value T. Higgins more than Claypool, but I do think he's ranked around like a Mike Williams who has jumped him recently. I think that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. If you can flip Mike Williams for Claypool, dude, do it.
Yeah, that I do. With Henry Ruggs, I'm kind of like a Henry Ruggs hater. I just don't love him a whole lot. But I mean, the guys he's ranked around, I don't hate his value in terms of like Darnell Mooney's right there, Tyler Boyd, Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore, Laviska Shenault. Like, there are some guys I really like more than Henry Ruggs around there, but there's some guys I definitely do not like as much as Henry Ruggs. So it could potentially be a good buy if I could flip the right players. Like, specifically, like, you flip a Darnell Mooney for a Ruggs. I think that's a very good move.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right, Frank.
Do you also consider Claypool a buy?
Has his price gone down or up since the beginning of the season?
Probably
definitely down. I think it was around. I could do the official check for you. Beginning
That's
of the
what
season,
I'm saying is a buy.
Beginning of the season, we'll call, I don't know, September 3rd. I don't know when the actual beginning of the season was, September 6th. He was at like 5,200 now. Okay, he's gone down like marginally. Looking at it, especially he was ranked around wide receiver 18 was kind of his peak. Right now he's like wide receiver 22.
I think that's about fair for him, to be honest. We're definitely going to see an uptick in volume and whatnot now that Juju is gone. I think we honestly get a little preview of what we can kind of expect the Steelers' offense to be in the future without Juju, I'm expecting. So that'll be a little bit interesting. I like Chase Claypool as a buy. I don't think he's a screaming buy, and I think that you have to be a little bit calculated in how you do it. To me, if I had a Chase Claypool, the way I would want to move into him is if we kind of did, we were talking about last episode, where if I'm going from a DJ Moore or a CD Lamb trying to, go down and pick up probably draft capital, maybe like you get a first Chase Claypool, something like that. I don't really know. You'd want to make the trade even to whatever it should be. Yeah. But that's how I'd want to do it, necessarily than going out and just buying Chase Claypool.
Yeah, I mean, a quick, who knows if this gets accepted in your league or not. But Chase Claypool, sorry, I put that on the wrong side. But let's say like CD Lamb for Chase Claypool and 2023 mid-first. I mean, according to Keep Trade Cut, that's pretty fair.
I mean, I think that there will be people that will be willing to shell out more for CeeDee Lamb. Maybe not right now, but you wait for him to have. He's gonna. Dude, the Cowboys' offense has been a really positive game script. CeeDee Lamb is still a really good player. He's gonna have weeks where he pops off. It just hasn't happened recently. And then that offense hasn't really needed to show anything. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. That's how I would do it necessarily. Then it's almost like Keenan Allen, right? Where Keenan Allen's probably a really good player to trade into, but generally speaking, you're going to have to give up a lot more than he's than
Word.
you're kind of comfortable giving up in terms of draft capital. Because you can say, oh, I'll give a contender first for Keenan Allen. But a lot of the times that might not be accepted
Not
because
gonna give it to him.
a lot of people like me really like Keenan Allen. I'm going to go with some buys that I have listed. I'm just going to kind of shoot some names out, guys that I'm somewhat interested in. I just checked the price tag on Dyami Brown, one, just because he's one of these rookies that hasn't really shown a ton of flashes. He had some hype coming into the beginning of the season. That hype has since died down. It seems like he's battled a little bit of injury. The whole Washington football team offense really hasn't been able to find its groove to a certain extent. It's been really kind of janky.
The number 2 receiver just keeps on getting hurt. Curtis Samuel got re-injured his groin. Dyami Brown got hurt.
So I don't necessarily expect Dyami Brown to be acquired in a lot of leagues at a great price. But if there's any sort of, I could pick him up for a second, I'd do it. I'd gladly do it. Like if you could pay almost the price that he was to be drafted at, I would love to do that, especially right now, just because once Dyami Brown gets back healthy and we get to the second half of the season, that's when I expect him to actually start putting up numbers when he's a little bit more acclimated. Another guy that I think could be really interesting is Will Fuller. I hate the Dolphins offense. And I'm really not looking to necessarily get more shares into it. But at the end of the day, there's a certain level where you have a level of talent that doesn't match the price. And to me, Will Fuller might be one of those where you have a guy that's really good. He's just so damn inconsistent, but that's just so priced in that you might be able to get a guy that puts up wide receiver 1, low end wide receiver 1 numbers when he's back and when 2 is back that you can get at a really favorable price tag, a price tag that's probably outside of the top 30 receivers easily. So
he's currently ranked as wide receiver 73 on Keep Trade Cut.
Like that's absurd.
I did not know that.
So like there comes a point where it's like I could just get a player that's really talented for dirt cheap.
He's literally ranked around Jamison Crowder, Mike Davis, Quintez Cephas, Ronald Jones.
Jesus Christ.
So I think especially if you we're talking about how redraft and dynasty are really weaving their way together. Like this is one of those scenarios where, dude, if you're in a newer dynasty league, especially, I think you could definitely get a panic sell deal on a Will Fuller.
I'm with you.
I didn't know he was that low. I mean, I don't think you can get him for that low of a price, but even slightly higher, I still think is a solid buy. Jeez, that's a low.
But dude, fuck, like you might be able to in some leagues maneuver your way from going from like a Mike Davis into a Will Fuller. I know Mike Davis gets a lot of hate, so that might not be the best example. I think you just mentioned him though, and that he
was one of those guys.
The thing with Mike Davis though, that the one positive is that if you offer him out in this deal, you're gonna look at his game stats and be like, oh, well, he's put up almost 10 points a game, and you look at Will Fuller's and you're like, well, he hasn't done squat, so maybe that can happen.
He's put up 6 points total. Yeah. All right. Anything else you got for us, Frank?
I got a couple of sells. I'm going to go with one. This is a guy that I liked a lot coming into the season, but he's getting a lot of hype, and the hype is continuing. It's Jacoby Myers. I like Jacoby Myers. I thought he was a really good player to invest in with a late second-round pick in the offseason, but it's gotten to the point where, dude, you could get more than a second for him, or like a really good second for him. And at that price, I am more than willing to move off of him if done correctly, just to get into a more stable asset. I think that the Patriots are still a team that needs receivers, and come next offseason, another season from now, I really don't see a world where Jacoby Myers is like the leading guy in targets and receiving yards for any team in the league. So fact of the matter is that I think this is a really good sell high opportunity on Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. It's just crazy that he still has yet to score a touchdown.
Since college.
He's had passing touchdowns. He's yet to catch a touchdown. Yeah, nuts. But yeah, I agree, Frank. It did get a little crazy. We talked about this before in prior times, but I said a long time ago, mid-seconds right around where I value him, and I kind of stick to around there. Maybe I'd push it back a little bit to mid to late second. But yeah, I mean, we got to the point where he was worth an early second, a second plus, and that's just too high for me, I think.
Yeah,
Anyone else you got, Frank?
You'd have to test the waters with him. It's just I would like I have Myers in a league. I'm gonna start to like offer him out. I would advise others to do the same. That's good for me. I'll save some of these
Okay.
juicers for a future time.
Okay. I'll highlight the one guy you talked about here. Looking at Bader Great, last segment of the pod. We got 4 guys for you. I guess we'll kick it off. Had a monster game last night. We're recording on Tuesday. On Monday night, Mark Andrews just went crazy. Bader Great.
Can I answer both? Is that possible?
I'll allow it.
I put out a tweet. I remember there was a lot of Mark Andrews panic, and I put out a tweet. I'm like, listen, if you need a tight end, go and buy Mark Andrews, because I think it was right before they played the Lions, because it's like, hey, he's going to go off against the Lions. The Lions can't stop a nosebleed, let alone a good tight end. And like Andrews is in a decent spot. Right now, I think we're starting to get to the Joe Mixon paradox with him, where the owners are going to see these recent performances and expect it to continue. Yeah. A buyer is going to be like, oh, well, what about the down weeks? I think this is just the Mark Andrews that we've expected. I still think that Mark Andrews is going to be plagued by a lack of opportunity a lot of games, where he's not that tight end that's going to go out there and get like 120 targets, which is really what you want him to be. So I'm going to lean a little bit more bait than great, but at the same time, we can't act like this dude isn't a top 6 tight end for a reason.
He is.
Mark Andrews or TJ Hockenson?
TJ Hockenson.
I'll take Hockenson. I think I'm at the point with Andrews. If you can get a first for him, I'd probably still do it. In any kind of deal, if you can get a late first. Because like Frank mentioned, the volume is just the problem. There's going to be a lot of weeks where he goes off, and then some weeks where he just has like 4 or 5 points, and it's like throughout the season total, it looks nice on you take like the average per game, but like owning him throughout the season, you feel some of that frustration. And then Bateman is about to enter the picture in that passing offense, and Bateman's going to be a presence in that offense. And he's going to take some of those red zone targets. He's a big receiver, so like he's like Frank said, he's a top 6 tight end, but I think I'd still take any first for him.
Well, also, let's just look at it, right? The past 2 games that the past 3 games that Mark Andrews has gone off. I mean, Lamar Jackson's just gone off. 287 against the Lions, and it should have been more if Hollywood Brown was able to catch a pass. The Broncos, he puts up 316 yards, and that was a weird game for the Broncos because Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. They just couldn't really move the ball in general, so the Ravens were able to just kind of run their offense the entire game. And then obviously that game against the Colts where Lamar Jackson just went absolutely buck fucking wild in the second half. And basically, I mean, he just went crazy. I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great player. He's not going to be throwing for 300 yards a game. This is not who he is. We're going to see a lot of games like the first 2 weeks against the Chiefs, against the Raiders, where he throws for 230, 240.
I think you're going to see more of the Lions game without the Hollywood passes drops. So what was that? How many yards was that in that?
He put up 287.
I think that's a fair number because I mean we keep talking about Bateman to the point where we're talking to him like he's DeAndre Hopkins coming back, but I truly think Bateman is going to be an impact on this offense. Not in the first couple weeks because he's still a rookie and he's coming back from an injury, but week 8 or so, I don't know when their bye is, but like in that later part of the season, like this is an offense that can actually throw the ball and doesn't need to rely on the run, but they still have that run if they need to get creative. And it starts to look a whole lot more like a Patrick Mahomes Chiefs team than it does the typical Lamar Jackson team we've seen. I just think that's the direction that they're kind of going.
I'm looking at it, right? Like his MVP year, he was averaging 208.5 passing yards a game. Last year it was $183. I agree with you, and it's going to be higher than that. But right now he's averaging 300 yards a game. I just do not see that continuing, especially with the way that the Ravens offense is. They're going to try and run the ball, especially as we get later into the season and the weather gets colder and whatnot.
That's true. I also do think something that's kind of weird and throw me off. The running backs are less involved this year in the Ravens offense than either of the past 2 years. So it's kind of tough to evaluate that. Like, if that's going to continue, how's that going to look next year when Dobbins is back and he's a stud? You have to give him his touches. Like, I don't. It's tough to predict how it's going to play out.
With recency bias, people are going to expect the Ravens offense to continue just going crazy. And I listen. I own.
Well, the thing is,
what are you gonna say?
They were. I forget if it was them or the Patriots, but one of them was the lowest pass attack last year, and whichever one it wasn't, the other one wasn't that far behind. But like, I'm not going to say the only way you can go is up, but it feels like this is a team that's trending more to the past than previously. So, yeah, maybe they don't average 300 yards per game, but I definitely think 250 yards per game is certainly feasible. I think 280 yards also isn't out of the question. I just think that's the way they're trending more so than a team that's going to be passing for 200 yards a game.
You want to know what I'm wondering is I wonder if they're just playing more snaps a lot of these games, because Lamar, everything is up for Lamar. His carries per game, yards per game.
I think what it is the running back attempts are the least it's been. I'm telling you, like, there were none of the running backs are really rushing the ball. So the entire offense is Lamar Jackson right now.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
it's crazy.
Like
the past 2, dude, he is fucking ridiculous, dude.
Oh yeah, no, it's been insane. The past 2 years has been like 1,000-yard rusher each year, and last year I don't think it was 1,000-yard rusher, but like Dobbins and Gus Edwards both had a few hundred yards. This year, that's not the case. And then I don't know how it's going to be back next year when they have their starting back.
No, he had 1,000 yards last year, 1,005.
Who?
Lamar.
Lamar. No, I meant like one of the running backs.
And
with Edwards.
Surprise,
Dobbins.
He's on pace for another 1,000-yard season.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with 17 games.
Yeah.
But I'm going to lean more bait than great for Andrews, because the recency bias, I think people are expecting this to become a staple, and I don't think that's a thing.
I'm not paying up for him. That's where I'll cut, I guess. Kareem
Hunt. We're in the Mixon paradox now. He's Mixon.
Yeah.
Mixon.
Mixon. I hope like 15 years from now, that's the thing. And we're just talking about. All right. Kareem Hunt, bait or great?
Where's Jake?
I know. I think he's bait.
Jake made it a point to text me, suck it. Kareem Hunt's RB6 and Nick Chubb is RB11, and then I responded like, check that at the end of the season. I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't expect him to continue in RB1 if that's the question. Like, I think Nick Chubb is still a significantly better running back to have. I think Kareem Hunt's he's like an RB2. I just think he's had a couple of just kind of crazy weeks. How do you guys feel?
Dude, I don't know.
It's so weird. No, that's what I'm saying.
He's a great player. He really is a really good player. Here's the reason I'm gonna say great, and it's not a great answer, but dude, he's just a good fucking player. And regardless of whether or not he's an RB1 or not, he's just gonna remain being relevant. So maybe whether that's a high-end RB2, a low-end RB2, I'm willing to say great, just because I know that Kareem Hunt is going to be in that top 24 conversation. He's instantly a high-end RB1 if Nick Chubb gets hurt. So I'll go great. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, you ask Jake what his price is. Jake's going to be like, 3 firsts. And it's just going to be like, what?
At the price of bait. I'm out.
And the freaking Browns running backs are getting like, what? They had like 250 yards last game.
Yeah.
Well, it's just not sustainable.
Crazy.
All right. Last two, Emmanuel Sanders. I'm saying at the price he's at, great.
I was wrong.
Dude, speaking of that hold league, Emmanuel Sanders is one of the dudes that I have held for like so long. And you talk about dips, turns, ups, and downs. Like, Emmanuel Sanders has been a perennial buy low for like 9 years.
Is he doing what James Conner was doing?
Yeah, basically, just like
what was James Conner doing again?
oh, here we go. Just it's just well because everyone's like, oh well, he's old, so he's only going to be there for one more year, but he's going to be good this year for like the past 4 years, and he just moves teams. And he's a good player and a good offense.
I think he kind of got underrated by everyone who's expecting Gabriel Davis to do what Sanders is doing, but it hasn't happened. So I'm with you guys. Great.
All right.
It's just he's
finally
awkward to buy.
Oh.
Sorry, I have to mention this because like people have offered me for Emmanuel Sanders before, and I mean you can't tell me that as a contending team you're not necessarily interested in seeing what the price tag is for Emmanuel Sanders. It's just that no one wants to sell him for a third, and no way in hell you're buying him for a second.
Yeah, he's one of those players in that paradox where it's like as a contender, you're like, I'll pay an early third for him, but I'm not trying to give you a second round pick.
Feels like a pick upgrade is the easiest solution.
Probably.
He's just not like right now, maybe because he's on the Bills. It's a different story. In previous seasons, he was just not in a sexy enough situation to really want to invest in.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Now is it even
worth it? Probably. Well,
maybe.
I don't know. He's ranked right around. He's actually ranked right around Will Fuller right now.
But see, like, dude, oh my, like, I would gladly turn Emmanuel Sanders into Will Fuller just because of the upside. I can pick up a guy that can give me Emmanuel Sanders-esque production relatively easily, like a 1-year rental.
Yeah. All right, last guy wrapping up season 2, episode 10. We've got Michael Pittman.
All right, guys, let's all say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bait.
Wow.
I had to say it twice.
I almost said great just to mess with it, but I figured that'd be better.
Dude, the dialogue on Twitter after the Monday night game was starting to get nasty about Michael Pittman.
Dude, it's just because you have so many of these truthers that like they do not care what happens. Dude,
they've been waiting 2 years for that touchdown catch.
All the people all the Denzel Mims people have just switched to Michael Pittman. It seems like
it's the same group.
It's like a religion now.
Yeah, it's. He was getting compared to some receivers yesterday on Twitter that I was like, this is nuts. I just think it's kind of you want to talk about the result about a lack of receivers. There's Michael Pittman. Like who does he ever? He's competing with Zach Pascal for targets.
Also against a very injured Ravens defense.
I don't even know if when T.Y. Hilton comes back, he's gonna beat out T.Y. Hilton for targets. Like he didn't last year. So I don't know. He's bait to me, especially with how much people are talking. If I owned him, I'd see what people are thinking about him because everyone apparently is just coming out of the woodworks. Like all these truthers came out yesterday night and they were like, Pittman mossed that corner, and they're just all going crazy. It's like he should be viewed in that same tier with all those good young wide receivers and like Higgins and Claypool. And I'm just like, it's not even close to those guys for me.
I definitely sold too low. I mean, listen, I don't hate Pittman. The problem I have with Pittman is that, like, dude, I am not happy if I'm starting Pittman any given week. I'm not out there like, oh, can't wait to flex Pittman this week. You know, like, no shot.
Not at all.
I'm scared. I'm scared that he's going to have like a 2-point game. Like, he's been great up until this point. If you bought him low, congratulations. It was probably a good deal. But if you are expecting him and want him to be a wide receiver 1 and even like a top 24 guy, I just don't think it's there.
No.
Maybe for this year, but I think that'll be it. Like, dude, you tell me the number 1 need for the Colts on offense is easily receivers. Like they have everything else.
I was gonna say, like, if you don't think they're addressing that this offseason,
I think if even like Juju shows up, he's in trouble.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah. 1,000%. So it's like, you can. There's easily, Michael Pittman's on that.
Yeah.
All right, but with that, looks like season 2, episode 10 in the books. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Frank's at 3rd and 20, and Lounis is Dynasty Lounis. I'm Dynasty JT. Go to 3rd20.com. Frank's got it on the sign over there. I'm working on my
Darius showing you truthers re-ride this Sunday once again.
Dude, if you want to see
So.
someone smash Fabiano again in a stardom sit-em column, check
I'm
out
5-0 on him.
It's bad.
It's a massacre.
It's a massacre.
Massacre.
Frank, I don't know if you could do like post-production edits, but like when Lounis goes, we ride on Sunday with Kadarius Toney. Can you just get like a bunch of people just driving off a cliff or something? That's where they're riding.
To the moon, baby.
Episode 10 in the books. Thank you, everyone.